think suffering is just a decision in the end. You either decide to suffer or you decide not to suffer. And this is just that one decision that is made that can change everything for you.
Do you really think it's a decision? Are you
Oh,
like, oh,
absolutely. Yes.
mm,
It's not an easy decision, but it's all it is a decision because one thing is going to lead to another. You're either going to decide to dread on it or you're going to decide to make something out of it. It's just a decision. If you continue to dread on it, I mean, absolutely, you're going to suffer even more. You're going to feel it. It's going to hurt you. You're going to go to sleep painfully. You're going to wake up and it's going to be painful. It's just a
yeah.
matter of
So how I'm just trying to understand
hmm,
in terms of like recent event, for example, school shooting. As a parent, how do you expel a parent like that just lost a child that it's your choice? You know?
Look, hell of an intro. I tell you what you info, but I never really been the type of dude to give no info. But if you see your end slow and you trying to get a benzo, I'll give your ass some game that'll change the way that you think, bro. Super skilled with the pencil, super ill in my mental. I reminisce on life, I'm nice, here's my memento. Get it through your tempo, I get on any tempo and give it all I got. I'm hot, I got like 10 flows, trying to live on the 10th floor across from residentials that I own. My mind stayed grown, I used to think clothes, I really used to think hoes and what I do to get those, and then I switched it up. I'm
Sounds
only
like you're in the
thinking
middle of a jungle, but that's okay.
yeah, nah, basically. Um, just got out of one meeting and then it's on to the next one. But this is what
Who
we do.
who doesn't like you? Meeting at 7 p.m. This that's family time.
Well, no, because you got to consider people get out of work. So
True.
not everybody can have meetings at work like you, man. You're a blessed man. I tell you that all the time.
And also the time zone. Time zone plays a factor.
Yeah.
Because you could have a meeting with somebody who's in Japan right now. They're gonna have to wake up at a whole completely different time.
Yeah. That would be interesting to actually experience.
I
How
mean,
that
it's gonna get to that point
yeah.
eventually. They're already talking about planes, that can get from here to Japan in like 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. So it's
two,
only a
three
matter of time.
hours.
Not 2, 3 hours. I think it's let me actually Google it before I give people the wrong information. But it's in motion. There's supposed to be a fast plane that goes from America to Australia or Japan or China in a shorter period of time than your average flight. Yeah, but it's gonna cost you like a fortune. It's gonna
Oh,
cost you like
I
10,
bet.
at
I
least
mean,
10, at least 10K.
if that.
Yeah. But it'll be good for those who wants to go get lunch in Italy and then come back, that
Oh,
it's
stop it.
convenient. It's
Oh, stop it.
convenient.
Oh, stop it.
It's convenient, bro, because you could go, you could go to Paris, and come back the same day. That's cool. That's cool.
People,
Imagine how efficient a company will be if you're able to have, one-on-one meeting the same day and be able to get back home the same day. That's
what
great.
is wrong with your cell phone?
Face-to-face interaction is different, man. That
It
energy, that,
is.
feeding off of somebody. I was just talking to uh, somebody recently, and it's like, yeah, and this is somebody that has meeting every day, maybe every other hour, right? And he tells you, he's like, yo, I feed off the energy of my meetings, like of the people that I interact with, and these are face-to-face meetings. So some people do feed off that energy.
I know. And I agree. I think it's very effective. I love meeting people in person. Like
Mm.
that's why virtual virtual meetings, it's a different experience.
Yeah,
In person, you're able to see people's emotion. You're able to see how they react. You can look them in their eyes. You can. It's intimate. It's meaningful.
right. That's true. Throughout this year, we talked a lot about positive things and things that that reflect uh, the type of individual we should strive to be, or at least some of the things that we talked about were, or most of the things we talked about were relevant towards society in general. And while it's okay to focus on the good, I know we talked about if I was to ask you today, what are you striving towards? You're probably going to tell me something along the line of freedom, happiness, or, I just want legacy or something along that line, right?
Right.
So we talk about that, all the good stuff that's ahead. Now, I kind of want to revert back and actually look at this, because if there's only a fraction of those who are enjoying those good time, not everybody gets to enjoy those good time. It means that a lot of people are not actually enjoying those, where they are right now. Right. So if that's the case, that means there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of stress, a lot of suffering, a lot of, burden going around. So today, really my topic, just to make things short, is just to talk about how do you, I want to focus around suffering. I want to focus around pain,
Suffering.
around around what do you think even exists? Why is it here? Why do how do you manage in some of the suffering that you had to go through? Like what would you do, if you were in a suffering situation right now? Like basically, I want to focus around suffering because I feel like at some point during the past 2.5 years, everyone suffered at some point. How did you pull yourself out of it? Because obviously you're still here. You're still here. So let's talk about that suffering session that you had to go through, or that suffering period that you had to go through, in terms of like, why do you think it even happened to you? Like, why do you think it was there? Does that make sense? So why do you think it happens to people? And obviously, you got to be mindful that suffering, it varies from person to person, from culture to culture. Like your level of suffering to someone else may not be suffering, or so be mindful of that when when you're approaching in terms of like what you went through. But I just want to hear, okay, what's real? Because we always talk about the colorful stuff. Let's talk about the black and white stuff today.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I think, I was suffering in itself, I think it's it's your way of thinking. I mean, my most difficult times has been this past 2 years, but I haven't yet screamed, this is difficult. I don't put that type of stuff into the universe, into the world. So yeah, every day we're going to have something where we don't know what's going to happen. I feel, at least this is how I look at things, right? I don't know what am I going to do 5-10 years from now. I can only prepare myself for what it is that I want. And the things that I want may not even come to fruition when I would want it. You still have to have some sort of goal that you're working towards. And there, along that process, you're going to have days, moments, hours, minutes where I just feel like, I think we all go through it, where like, man, we don't want to go through it. And it's just painful to go through it. But I don't know if I can ever say that, not to say I don't suffer, because I think we all do at some point, but I don't dread too long on it, because I look over it and just kind of move past it as fast as possible. Because I don't like to keep myself down for too long. It doesn't help with my productivity. So if I were to say, how is it that I deal with it? I mean, I try to deal with it literally head on. I deal with it. It depends on the scenario. So let me think of an example okay, so you were gonna say something.
No, I'm just listening.
So there was maybe like 2 months ago. It was very recently, where my car was giving me problems. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, it's one of those things where I think, now granted, a car breaking down or a car giving you issues isn't suffering. I don't think so. But it's one of those things where some people may look at it as like, oh my gosh, how are you going to take care of this issue now? Because it could be, you could be living in tough times, tough situations. And so I was literally that person. I was like, man, this is going to be a tough one to deal with right now at the moment. And so how did I deal with it? I literally looked at my scenario, looked at my situation, and literally said, what is the worst that could happen from this? And that's exactly how I made my decision on how I was going to take care of it. I literally looked at the worst case scenario, and then I knew, all right, that if that's my worst case scenario, I can't allow that to happen. Now I know exactly what I have to do. So even in my suffering moments, or even in my difficult time, my difficult moments, I'm still trying to look for the worst of the worst, and then still trying to find that light that could still allow me to make that decision. Because I think suffering is just a decision in the end. You either decide to suffer or you decide not to suffer. And this is just that one decision that is made that can change everything for you.
Do you really think it's a decision? Are you
Oh,
like,
absolutely. Yes.
Mm.
It's not an easy decision, but it's all it is a decision, because one thing is going to lead to another. You're either going to decide to dread on it, or you're going to decide to make something out of it. It's just a decision. If you continue to dread on it, I mean, absolutely, you're going to suffer even more. You're going to feel it. It's going to hurt you. You're going to go to sleep painfully. You're going to wake up and it's going to be painful. It's just a matter of
So how I'm just trying to understand in terms of like
Hmm.
in terms of like recent event, for example, school shooting. As a parent, how do you expel a parent like that just lost a child, that it's a choice? You know?
I mean, that's not a choice. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's
but that's
that's
suffering, though. It is
that
suffering.
that is
It's
okay. We can even talk to the people that lose their children. I forget what they call it. During pregnancy. Oh my gosh. Why is it not
abortion,
coming to
and
me?
I'm
Okay. No,
not
not
abortion.
abortion. I'm thinking, oh man. Forgive me, ladies. I apologize. But y'all know what I'm talking about.
Okay, go ahead.
In those situations, they didn't choose that either. But some people still are able to see, and I make not even make good out of it. That's suffering in itself. They're still able to kind of move on, not move from it, but move along with their lives from that situation, from that scenario.
Do you
So
really think people move on from that stuff, though?
yes, I do. I do. It may you may not see it. It's tough. I think it's extremely tough to lose a child, to lose anybody. I think it's difficult.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't even just say child. I wouldn't say your kid. I wouldn't say an infant. You know, it's just to lose anybody. That's difficult.
I
But
think, yeah, go ahead.
but how often is it? Like, I mean, we've all lost somebody in our lives. Are you still suffering? I'm not.
It's not moving
It's
on, though. It's not moving on. I think it's more of acceptance. You've accepted reality.
mm,
I don't think it's moving on. You never move on of something that you truly love. And those things that make you suffer, it makes you suffer because you were once attached to it. You just accept reality and face it, that there are certain things that are out of your control. Um, I just think of a child that's born without arms, for example. How long is he going to dwell on the fact that he doesn't have arms? At some point he's gonna have to accept the fact that, hey, I've been put in this position for a reason. How do I humble myself to use this as an opportunity to shine even brighter? But if you think about just moving on, like how do you move on from, like, there's so many different scenarios. I just think it's harder to just move on from a suffering situation.
so what when you move on from something, what does that look like for you?
Moving on is like I don't ever have to worry about or even reflect on that thing ever. Like it's dead to me.
Okay.
That's what moving on means to me. It's um like I, it, it's forgotten. You're dead in
Mm,
terms of whatever situation. I've moved on from a certain situation. It's like, yeah, I don't even consider it to be um part of something that has impacted my life, because I've found ways to heal from it, you know.
mhm.
And I think that's it. That transition from grieving to healing is moving on. I think that's the best definition I could give you.
Interesting. Okay, so you're looking at it like you just forget it. Where in
Yeah,
my
because we're
situation,
talking about suffering, right? So
yeah,
yeah, so if in terms of suffering, in terms of like I lost my job, I got kicked out of school, I did poorly in school, yeah, I slept with somebody I was not supposed to, I said something I was not supposed to, send a text I wasn't supposed to, all these things. Whatever it is that caused you suffering, these are just examples that I'm throwing out there. But if it is causing you pain at some point, okay, how do you move on from something like that, right?
mhm,
You move on the minute you decide to transition and accept the reality that hey, it happened. I have no control over the fact that it already happened, but it doesn't define me in terms of where I'm going. That's moving on. But
but that doesn't
acceptance,
mean. But that doesn't
acceptance
mean
is
you
like,
do
hey,
not
I
have.
know this is here, but it's not gonna numb me. It's not gonna stop me from keeping on pushing it. It's here. I'm gonna use this as a leverage. That's acceptance.
You're saying the same thing, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying in terms of moving on. It's you're putting it in the past, but moving on does not necessarily mean you have to forget it.
And these are not well, true. You don't have to forget it, but I think in my if you move on from something, you never come back to it.
And if you accept something, you never go back to it. What's the
But
difference?
it's with you. You carry it with you. When you accept something, you realize that hey, it's there, but I'm not gonna let that dictate how I move. It's with me, but I'm not gonna let that dictate how I move. I've accepted the fact that I'm gonna carry this with me. I've accepted the fact that I only have four fingers or one leg, right? Things like that. But if I move on, you don't move on from the fact that you have, I'm not supposed to laugh, but you don't move on from the fact that you have one leg or one arm. That you live with this until you die. So you've
Right.
accepted the fact that this is who you are, but you're not gonna let that define you, right? That's acceptance.
I guess. I mean,
I don't want to confuse you. I'm
no, you're not
sorry. I don't
confusing
want
me
to
because
confuse you.
in the end, in the end, they're both the same thing to me. I guess it just depends on the person at the end of the day. Like if I accept something, cool, I accept it. If I move on for something, I'm leaving it in the past. But just because I'm moving on for something, I never forget where I come from. I never forget what was in the past. I never forget those things. So if you're telling me I moved on and I forgot, no, absolutely not. I know the people that impacted me. I know the people that didn't impact me. I know the things that helped me. I remember those things. So, did I ever really forget it? No. And did it really cause me harm? It might have at the moment, but I still remember it. Am I mad about it? No, I'm good. So, I can't really say that, just there, in my personal opinion, and this is how I'm viewing things, right? Call me crazy if you want to. I don't care. But moving on doesn't necessarily mean you have to forget it. You got to leave it in the past and just never remember it. No, it could be one of
Okay.
those things that you just put it to the side and you go and navigate. You go over that speed bump, you go over that bump to go on to the next thing. And then that's why I said, I think in my personal opinion, it's two of the same words. It's just, I guess, how you interpret it as a person and
So,
kind of
so
what it is
give me
that you're
an
going through.
example of something that you will consider that you've moved on from.
Everything from my past. Are you
You
serious?
moved on. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
yet again, dude, did I say that I don't recall or do I not remember or do I not like it is what it is. Everything from the past is there.
Mm.
But I'm not heartbroken over it. I'm not necessarily gonna go back and say, I'm not gonna put nobody in harm or put anybody in some sort of like this is what you did to me. No.
Mm.
It's just, I mean, it is what it is. I've moved on. I'm in a different phase in life. I'm not there anymore. I respect and understand what had happened, and that's that. Like
Mm.
again, one of my parents, I don't get along with one of my parents at all. Right?
Mm.
I moved on from that situation. I've accepted how you are as a
You've
human being.
accepted or you moved on.
Both,
So
both,
okay.
both.
Mm.
Because in my opinion, they're the same thing. I moved on. Now, if we were to have a conversation again, I would allow that
Mm.
because I'm mature enough to say, hey, let's sit down again.
Mm.
If this is what you want, but in my reality, I'm
I don't
not
think
gonna.
you've moved on though, because it's still there. If you, that's what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. So you're saying you moved on and you've accepted at the same time. That is not. I don't think that's possible
You're putting an
because
issue to the side. You're just putting something to the
yeah.
side.
So that's you've accepted the fact that it
I'm putting
happened.
if I'm putting something to the side and going on to the next thing, that does not necessarily mean you're crossing it off your list.
Gotcha.
You're just putting it to your right or you're
Mm.
putting it to your left. And then you're saying, all right, this is what's ahead of me. I mean, if you want to put your car in reverse, you always have that ability to do so.
Mm.
You're not taking that opportunity away for you to do that. You can at any point in time. And if you, it's the same thing. If you accept something, you have the ability to put your car in reverse at any point in time. It's the same exact thing. You want to go back to where you come from, go back. Everybody has that. Well, not I shouldn't say everybody. For the majority of those, they have that ability to do so.
That's true.
That's why I said. I mean, just the two words. I get. I understand what you're saying, and that's why I think it depends on the person and just how do you interpret those words and what do those words mean to you.
It really depends on how you define those words to
Because I mean,
to to
let's bring it
standard.
into a corporate environment. I mean, there's some times where it's just you got some bad quarters. You just don't make money. What do? You accept it or do you move on from it? Which one are you going to do? You're going to accept the fact that you lost money, or you're going to move on and say, how are we going to put this? How are we going to not do that again?
It depends on the business and the client because
Cut it out.
if listen, if it's a recurring client, if it's somebody I got to deal with on the constant, like a every year type thing, a partner type of situation, I will accept it. I will accept it just because I want to maintain a positive relationship with this individual. But if it's somebody that's like it was one deal and then they want to come back the next year and do another deal, and the first deal did not go well, I'm not gonna accept it. I'm moving on because basically I'm not coming back. That's where I see the difference in the two terms. But I could be wrong. I'm excited to see what people say about these two different terms because I think they're different.
That's fair. I mean, so you're saying if you don't accept it, accept the business back, that's when you're moving on.
Yeah, because I'm never coming back to that. I'm gone. I'm moved on. Moved on. Like I'm not coming back to this. But if it's still there, if it's still lingering around and with me for whatever reason, that means I've accepted it. I've accepted the fact that, it may have done something to me at some point, but it's still here.
But there was so in that situation, in that scenario, was there anything bad that happened that's why you're moving on?
Hmm?
Is there
It
anything
doesn't
bad
even
that
have to be
happened?
anything bad. It doesn't even have to
Well,
be
why would you
anything.
move on for something good?
You can. You can. If you want to
If it ain't
transcend to
broke, don't
something
fix
better.
it.
Well, if you want to transcend to something better, if something is no longer challenging for you, I think I'm thinking of a CEO of one company where I've, basically checked every box, right? And it might not even be a CEO. It could be an athlete who is good at baseball, volleyball, and basketball, right? You play basketball. Michael Jordan tried it, right? So you play basketball, you win all these awards, and you're like, oh, I want to go try baseball. It's not that basketball was no longer good. You're just, that individual likes to challenge themselves and move on from things or accept the fact that I'm just good at other things and I'm gonna go try it. So there's two different things. Michael Jordan did not move on from basketball. He accepted that he was talented at different things, or at least he thought he was talented in baseball. But the skill did not translate to the pro level. I don't want to, disrespect the guy, but I'm just, trying to paint the picture between two different, you know, definition here. Moving on and accepting is two different things. But I could be completely crazy and wrong on this, which I will accept the answer when it comes in. But yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. that's kind of where I'm going to. But my focus was going towards suffering and understanding, in this time of crisis, in this time of inflation, in this time of, high student loan, high bills, and high mortgage, high rents,
It's
and
life.
how like and people are suffering and how some people may be sitting there like they because I guarantee you there are people that go through social media and they sit there and they're like, yo, why am I suffering? Why am I not like, damn, no, it happens. You should never look at it that way, but I'm sure there are people that go through those phases, and it's like, so when you're there, how like how do you get out of the self-inflicted suffering moments or phases?
It's self-inflicted. Key word. It is self-inflicted. You brought it on yourself. I mean, you should know how to rewind that whole situation. I'm not going to tell somebody how to.
You
I'm
think
not
you
gonna.
should, bro? Do you know the amount of emotion that goes through a person's mind?
I don't.
Not
I
everybody
only know
process
the
things
amount
the
of
same
emotion
way.
that go through my mind.
Yeah, right.
That is, I don't know. I really can't speak on anybody else but myself. I just know that suffering is self-inflicted.
Mm.
It's to the point where
even despite the fact that people just like So all right. Let me ask you a question. Do you think Kobe's wife's suffering was self-inflicted? It was a choice.
no, that's death, man.
Right, but exactly, that's suffering. How
Do
was
you
that
think today? Do you
self-inflicted?
think she's still suffering today?
Yes.
And we're not having a conversation with her, so we don't know the answer,
Yes.
right?
I think it's a pain. It's a pain that's always going to be there, but you accept the fact that you're going to live with this pain.
There you go with the word.
Maybe all right. Yes, my answer is yes. I think she's still suffering, but suffering with not to the same degree as when it happened.
Okay. Suffering, the state of undergoing pain,
Google
distress, or hardship. Yes, I actually did just Google it because I think it's important for us to really understand what the word suffering means as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Pain, distress, or hardship.
Mm-hmm.
That could mean, and I think everyone's level of suffering is going to be different. And so to really try to navigate and try to deal and try to have this conversation on how should others deal with it? I mean, that's a hard question to answer, man.
No, I'm not saying how should others deal with it. That was never the question. That was never the question. What we're trying to kind of paint here is understand, in terms of what you have experienced, why do you feel as though suffering is even a thing? And how can we combat that as a collective group? That's really what I want to know. Because everybody is suffering to a certain extent, but how do we combat that as a collective group to where there's less of that or none of it?
Be happy. When you're suffering, it's the opposite of literally being happy. That means you're sad when you're suffering. Not to say that, there's certain scenarios. Yes, you're going to, again, I think this is just humans. We're going to suffer. We are. There's going to be times there's going to be moments where tragic moments happen and you're going to suffer. I don't think we can escape it. Tragedies happen every single day. Now, if you're going to try to avoid it, good luck. I think the best thing to do is, what do you do when you're going through it? How do you deal with it? And I think that is the power in us as humans, what we're capable of doing. Now, if you can't do it yourself, go seek for guidance, seek for help, go talk to somebody. I don't know. I don't have the solution for you. You're going to have to find the solution within yourself. But to say, how do we deal with it? Not even to how do you do it. How do we combat it? I don't think you can combat something like this. It's one that we don't really have control over. Unless if, of course, you go on social media and you start scrolling and then you put yourself in this moment, then yeah, that's self-inflicted. You did it to yourself. But if a tragedy happens, then that's a different scenario.
Hmm.
I mean, do you have? I'm curious to hear from you. Like, what is it that you have to say in terms of how would you go about mitigating suffering, or better yet, just how is it that we can kind of help individuals see through their suffering moments and times in life?
I mean, you've always heard the term of like the tell me who you hang out with and I'll tell you who you will be, that type of stuff. So when you're suffering, really, if you think about it, when you're grieving for family death or, some sort of pain, relationship breakup, whatever it could be, the people that are really there for you is your core group, right? So most likely your core friends or, a brother, sister, a mother, somebody who's close to you. And those are the people that will basically allow you to navigate the suffering moment that you're going through. So I think if we are to look at it that way, the people that you associate yourself with will determine how you navigate your suffering phases. Because those are the people that will be there as a support to you when you're going through this tough time. I'm just thinking of like a family member who, like a couple, for example, their first child is born and they first child cannot hear or speak, or just birth defect, right? So in that situation, how do you think the couple is gonna cope? 9 times out of 10 is their core friend group, their core, family, members that are going to support them too. So having people around you that lift up that positive energy is part of the individuals that you can have to help you navigate those the suffering moment or those painful moment, even if it's self-inflicted, because just because you did it to yourself doesn't mean you have to deal with it by yourself. um, you know Having other perspective on the issue actually allows you to see some of the mistakes that you may have made along the way. But
So,
that's just how I see it. But ultimately, my true answer will just be God, because God is the true answer to our suffering. The reason why you go through a certain suffering phase is to get closer to Him, whether you like it or not. But that's my personal answer. But
so
on a more logistical front of how you're gonna navigate it, it's your core system and the people that you associate yourself with.
okay. Um, what do you say to that person who doesn't have a support system? Because not everybody has that.
Not everybody has that. So now at that point, the lack of support system is a choice. That's where I would say that's a choice.
How is that a choice?
Because you have the ability to go and make connection. You have the ability to go and seek and ask for help. There's a lot of people. The world that we live in it's a friendly one, right? There's a lot of
It's a
people.
what?
It is a friendly one.
It's a what?
It is a friendly one.
Boy,
There's
you got to
always
be out of your mind.
there is always people seeking to help others,
I
right?
wouldn't say
And
always.
and well, I don't know where you'd be at.
I would not say always, because if you're gonna say that, then half of the stuff that happens in this world wouldn't happen.
Yeah, but that's more on the circumstances and situations, right? So
You're
it's
saying
it's
always.
I said situational. Basically, there are people always willing to help, but they could be, let's say, I'm over here in North Carolina seeking help, but the person who can help me is actually in California, right? That person is there, but there's no way for us to get in contact because they're miles away. Those dots did not connect just yet. There's always somebody in the world that can help you, but it's you have to make those dots connect, and the way you do that is through action and intentions. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. But I mean, to the person that doesn't have a support system, you said it's a choice. So, I
Yeah,
mean, what
I
does
think
that
it's a
person
choice
really
for you
do?
not to have a support system. I think I'm thinking of it. Well, you got to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there. There's got to be at least one person in this planet with whom you share a common interest, you know, and that's that one person to whom you can just have a full conversation and have as your support system. Because through those suffering days, that's the person that's going to help you. Through those successful days, that's the person that may be there or they may be jealous. I would love to talk about jealousy on the next topic. That's something that's been hovering over my head for some reason. So, yeah, it's your support system will will be there for you.
What is wrong with if you're biased? Well, not to say that there's wrong with anything like this, but I noticed you didn't mention it. You mentioned just go put yourself out there. Um, what's wrong with seeking for help or like therapy? Not to say that there's anything wrong with it, but I feel like that's a lot of people don't do that. At least people that I know don't really do that. So, what would you say? Like, obviously, a person doesn't have, and I caught that you said it. Person does not have a support system, but then they go out into the world to go seek for that help from just a regular person, whereas a professional literally is waiting for your phone call.
Yeah. I think everybody in the world already goes through therapy. They just don't know it. I'm gonna say that again. I think everybody in the world already goes through therapy. They just don't know it. I see it everywhere that I go. There's sessions happening everywhere in the world. They just don't know it. The reason why is because um, the way we confine in people vary from individual to individual. The way you will have a conversation with your girl is completely different than the way you will have a conversation with the Uber driver who picked you up from the airport, right? But that conversation with your girl will impact you in a completely different manner than the conversation you had with the Uber driver, right? Or it could be the other way around. At some point between the two, you had a therapy session, you had a moment of reflection where it hit you. It's like, hey, yo, that conversation was actually good. There was some key element out of that. So therapy is not really you going into a room and sitting on the couch or laying on the couch. I think we need to take that misconception out of our mindset. Therapy is already happening between us. It's just how do we become aware of it and take it to the next level, right? And take it to the point where we're actually embracing the fact that it's an opportunity to learn and be better, right? It's an opportunity to get to that self-realization and be, yeah, uh, I've learned something today that have impacted me in a positive way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm following.
Yeah, that's my take.
Hmm.
Anything else?
No.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, and just have your perspective on how, suffering has been impacting our lives and our day to day. It was a great conversation. I'm sure there will be more down the line in terms of some elements that we may have discussed today that we'll discuss down the line again, as always. They always come back up.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of having open discussions and not open conversation. But I really wanted to touch on it because it's it's good to focus on where we're going or where we are, but there is a reason why you are where you are. There's a reason why you decided to make the shift. There's a reason why you're looking at life from a different lens, because there was a point of time where you experienced suffering, and that experience with suffering changed your perspective on on how you want to dictate your life. Now, I'm not here to say you need to go back and dwell on that suffering, but really reflect on how that has shaped you, and are you carrying on with the fact that, hey, I never want to be there again, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. I never want to be in that position again. What necessary steps do I need to take? Is it, if you're religious, it's on a religious front. If it's on a business front, how do you want to handle it? On a personal front, what needs to happen? But it's having those internal conversations and looking at, like, am I just putting a band-aid on this suffering experience that I went through, or am I really looking at the wound and seeing how do we heal this thing?
Yeah. And I mean, to add on to that really quickly here, don't let the cloud hover over your head for too long. Not to say you got to deal with the situation quickly, but give it real thought, give it time for you to really understand and navigate through it. The cloud, it doesn't rain every single day. It doesn't storm every single day. The storms always go away. And so really look at it at the same exact mindset. Like, it's just a storm that you have to get through, but take that time to really navigate through it.
Cause I know the life I want, I'm just setting it up. Removing those that's close who try messing it up. Can't wait for champagne toast with the relevant bunch. Like, what's up? Yeah. Like, what you do, homie? What's your vision? How you thinking? How you move, homie? And is you cool, homie? You thinking building, then that's something we could do, homie.